to the right. Snap to Young. Drops back. Pressure from the edges. He throws near sideline. And it's intercepted. Intercepted. Keely Ringo at the 21. Off he goes. 40, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. Near sideline. Breaks the tackle. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. 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 Georgia.
Troup, Smooch, and the Dawgs Show. Another new episode is coming up tonight.
It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show.
You're listening to the one and only Dawgs Show. Your hosts, Troup Brenson and Smooch Moncrief.
Oh, yeah. You know it.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Welcome, Dog fans, to the one and only Dawgs Show with Troup and Smooch. Smooch, go ahead and hit that bumper. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Countdown to kickoff, baby.
This is the Countdown to Kickoff, brought to you by the Dawgs Show. Smooch, man, it's finally almost here. We are so looking forward to this game against Bama.
Oh, it's right here, Troop. It felt like it would never come, and now we are at the precipice, Troop Brinson, right at the doorway. I've had every emotion from the from nausea to excitement to aggression, and I got to tell you, I'm in a really good place right now.
Me too. And I took some time the past couple of weeks, just like the Dogs did, and kind of got past my just irritants and annoyance, I guess, of that Kentucky game and understanding how it seems to happen a good bit. And we had some history with Georgia playing like that in some of these games, especially before a bye week. But then I dug down into it and started thinking or kind of played in my mind how things are going to transpire and what Georgia typically does and what this program is all about. Started to feel a little bit better. And we're going to kind of break that down tonight and count down to kickoff: offense, defense, predictions, some stuff that's happened on social media. We've got really a full show just as countdown to kickoff.
Right.
And we know that you guys can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, we're going to combine them all because there's nothing else on the mind of a Georgia fan right now but what happens Saturday evening, and so that's going to be right where we are behind enemy lines here in northern Alabama. I got to tell you, I don't know. It's not like the people we're meeting on Twitter. The people I am bumping into in North Alabama here, they are not confident at all.
Really?
I had a guy tell me last night, well, just promise we'll still be friends after Georgia takes Alabama to the woodshed on Saturday. Mm-hmm. That's what was said. So they may be confident and they're hiding it, or they may be hedging their bets a little bit. But this happens with all fans. It's not just Alabama fans. You cannot keep the most ignorant amongst yourselves off of the Twitter sphere.
And there is a lot of recency bias. And one week you think Georgia's the best team, and over the past few years, and the next week you got them downgraded. Tennessee is slotted to win a national championship. Heard that on a couple of different shows. Very surprised by that.
It's the flavor of the week, man. Whichever one happens. Really do you realize, had Georgia just scored 10 more points in the Kentucky game, these wouldn't be the discussions. I mean, that's literally all it is. That's how close this is to being a whole different narrative. But college football changes from week to week. Let's not forget, Colorado and USC were going to the playoff just about 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Yeah, we'd also have a cameo on this show. Coach Hayes going to come on quickly and answer a question, or tell me if I'm wrong about some questions I got about Georgia's defense.
Oh, he'll tell you. Yeah,
he's going to tell me. He's going to show us and help us out with that. But so it has been 2 weeks, and I feel pretty good that Georgia has used those 2 weeks to get better. And that was the main thing that Coach Smart talks about, is just getting better. We have been some problems have been identified, and that's the question that we ask about other teams that haven't had issues or playing teams that won't challenge them, is they don't know the problems to identify,
so
to stress over practice. And I feel like Georgia has had that opportunity, and it's benefited them immensely, I'm sure.
Right. That's the part that we sometimes find frustrating. Kirby sometimes puts his – you ever heard this phrase that you never know what's inside a tea bag until you put it in hot water? And Kirby likes to put his players in hot water. He likes to see what they're made out of. He likes to see where the improvement needs to be and where the weaknesses are. Now, I'm not saying I like it. I'm just saying that's what he does. It's frustrating as a fan to watch sometimes, but that's what he's doing. That's his method, for lack of a better term.
Well, we've heard it brought back up. Milroe's comments after the SEC championship, where he doubted that Georgia had it in them basically to play a 60-minute game. They didn't want to. And that's been
they
put
had
out
negative
there.
Body language. Yes,
it is. He's a master at that, so he'll probably make a career of that some way. Body language.
Oh, I'm sure. He strikes me as a
like
career
Keon
deep
Coleman.
thinker. Yeah, yeah. Him and Keon Coleman opened a think tank.
So yeah, he's got Georgia figured out, and Georgia didn't want to play a 60-minute game. Well, they've asked Georgia players about that. I don't think they need it. I'm sure it's been used to Georgia's benefit. But you even heard Kirby say, I don't think that I needed to get their attention this week. As a matter of fact, his comments we're going to play right here.
Yeah.
That, he had to, if anything, he had to hold them back because their focus is where it needs to be, and the intensity, ferociousness that they're approaching just the practices. He was, had to hold them back.
Yeah, check this out.
You don't ever have to worry about them on this week. You got to be careful not to leave it all on the practice field. That's probably the biggest thing is holding guys back and making sure that they don't overdo it, but spirited, get after it, practice.
He actually is having to keep his players from killing each other. They're so eager to get a piece of Bama. I mean, that is exactly what he's saying right there.
Yeah, and that doesn't bode well. Like I said, I think that where we sit right now, Georgia's in a good spot. And with a chip on their shoulder, and with their coaching staff's full attention of the coaching staff, and I don't know, some other teams just I feel like the rat poison that Saban used to say is sitting over there in Tuscaloosa right now, and they maybe haven't been challenged enough or think they're better. They're a good team, no doubt.
They're a great
But we're going to
team.
find out a lot. We can all talk about this and speculate and commentate. You find out a lot when these teams actually play each other. And the narrative changes so quickly. And we've been on social media this week, and I had an innocent comment yesterday, and it was mostly Smooch directed towards Georgia fans, just trying to get them to be where.
I was out of pocket for a lot of last week, and you were simply starting a dialogue with our fans and in a greater context, the Georgia fans, and Alabama decided they needed to be a part of this. They can't handle not being talked about. Yeah, and
it's fine. I don't like when other teams say, why are you even want to keep your focus on your own team? Why are you on our page? You got us on your brain. That's what we do. That's what everybody should do. It's fun. And so that's fine. They engage. Yes, we want engagement, folks. You can't discredit us by saying, you guys just looking for clicks or engagement.
Yeah.
We're a podcast. We depend
that's exactly
on
right.
people talking. So,
right.
Yeah.
And the madder you get, the better it is for us. And you also don't understand one very important detail. You guys are all the entertainment we need in life. The angrier you get with us, it's like having nonstop entertainment for free. We just sit back and enjoy I can just picture you and your wife cousin sitting in the house, just banging out on your keyboard with one finger at a time, one letter at a time, just bang, 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 bang. Oh, this will get him. I'm going to show him.
Yeah. You never win those arguments. But here's what I said, and it's like this Dog fans. Bama and Georgia, very similar talent-wise, and they are. But if folks are taking Kalen DeBoer over Kirby Smart, they haven't been paying attention to what matters. And you can trust what you know, not the present narrative or the recency bias. Georgia is the standard, and that's a big edge. Well, look at it now. 16,000 views, 36 comments, 23 reshares, 38 bookmarks. I kind of those bookmarks aren't Georgia fans either, are they?
No, they're not. That is an Alabama thing right there. So they are really hoping to cash in receipts. Now, let me tell you the genius behind this. Number one, First of all, we're going to keep track of the number of bookmarks and if it decreases significantly after the results of Saturday's game. And number two, all you can do if you try and drag us on Sunday is push our content. That's all you can do. So either way, we'd like to thank you, either for taking the whooping that's most assuredly coming or for pushing our content. Either way, we're good with it.
And what was somebody said? Well, somebody asked you a question, right? What you going to say? What's going to happen if you guys lose Saturday?
Yeah, he said, what's going to happen if you guys are wrong? And I said, well, then we'll lose. Like that's the easiest answer to a question ever.
We'll get ready for Auburn.
Right, we'll get ready for Auburn. It's a 12-team playoff. Georgia's got a lot of other games. What if you lose? Well, if we lose, then we'll be 3-1 and we'll move forward. I don't. You're allowed to be a podcast and take a bold stand and take a risk of being right or wrong. That's what makes this all fun. It amazes me if they knew how little time we actually spent thinking about Twitter, because they spent. That's probably half of these guys have probably lost their job working at the mud factory or whatever it is they do, just to be on Twitter and to talk back and forth with people.
Anyway, that's just a little sidetrack, good fun we have, because that's what makes it, spices it up as we wait for the game. Let's break this game down.
Let's do it. That's what the people tuned in for, Troop.
Yes, we want to weigh in on how we think. And I had a good bit of time this week where I just spent alone time and with myself, of course, and with Alabama and Georgia in my head and the players, and trying to figure out where I was going to fall on this, because I actually started out, I'll be honest with you, and I was like, we're going to Tuscaloosa seems like a big advantage for Alabama. It should be a night game in Tuscaloosa, and I was worried more about that. But then Georgia, their offense didn't look great, and I'm like most people, I want to see what you got. I want to see you turn it on. But Kentucky's not a team that you should have to throw everything out there and turn everything loose. Mm-hmm. And Georgia approached it that way. But as I started to think and what needed to happen offensively, first of all, Smooch, because that's where, if anybody's going to discredit Georgia hasn't given up a touchdown this year. Right. So you got to look at offense. And Georgia did score in that second half. They haven't been a first half scoring team yet. They scored in the second half against Clemson with no problem. Mm-hmm. I will say this, that Clemson may have a better defense than Alabama.
That's true.
And Kentucky's front seven is comparable to the top 10 defenses. That they are no joke.
That's 100% correct. That's something I think a lot of people are. The South Carolina game, just like it, you said it's a week to week, whatever the current narrative is. The South Carolina game messed a lot of people up in terms of how they viewed Kentucky, just like the Kentucky game really messed up how you view Georgia. Georgia's played some really good defensive fronts in these first three games.
Yeah. Yep. So I think if you narrow it down to what really has to happen, Carson Beck, he's the guy who really needs to make this thing run. He has to have a good game. And you can always tie in the offensive line and stuff like that, but I think offensive line is going to do a good enough job. Beck has to show you why he is elite, why he's been considered one of the top prospects coming out this year. Mm-hmm. So Carson Beck, it hinges on him. Yes. If he has a good game, I don't feel like there's any way, because I'm very confident Georgia's defense is going to play well. But if Carson Beck has the game that we know he has in him, and it's just the mindset, I feel like Georgia is gonna do very well and set themselves up for maybe a much easier win than a lot of people are predicting.
I agree. I think that I started out, as a matter of fact, I believe I said it on the podcast last week, I thought that Georgia opening up at a 1.5 point favorite was generous. I didn't feel like they were a 1.5 point favorite in Tuscaloosa. As we've drawn closer to game time, as I've gone and watched every Alabama game, I really think Georgia's in a good spot going in to the game. I, too, think that this game has enormous ramifications, not just for this season for Carson Beck, but for his entire career. This game will be a game that NFL scouts watch. They're going to watch. Okay, here he is. He's playing the best.
NFL athletes.
He's playing NFL athletes. What does he do? Does he play his best football? Does he become the best player on the field at times and elevate his team? Over on the defensive side, I'll tell you exactly where I come down. To me, the Mykel Williams right now is listed as questionable. I'm going to tell you I don't buy it. I'll be surprised if he doesn't play in this game. But if he doesn't, that changes some things, because these are the type of games that a player like Jalen Walker goes from being a really good player to a legend.
Yes.
These are the types of games. If you have a player like Mykel Williams on the field, it only raises the lethality of what Jalen Walker brings to the game. And so, to me, Jalen Walker, CJ Allen are huge keys to this game, but Mykel Williams being on the field in front of them is really going to be the linchpin in my estimation, because you can't single any of those guys. And so I think if they run out there with the starters and Mykel Williams is out there, I think my anxiety level will drop by about 80%. Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned this with a schedule like this, with so many kind of spotlight marquee type games. That's where you find your identity. We talked about it before. We don't know what's Georgia's identity. Well, these are the games you find out. These games, it's Texas, Alabama. That's where you find out what these players are all about. And players that you know just a little bit about, or the casual fan doesn't know their name, they become household names. You have to play the games, and then that's where this comes about. Nobody was heralding Stetson Bennett, before he did it on the field. And Carson Beck's going to have his opportunity. That's the great thing about this competition. You have the opportunity to shine and to push yourself. And the preparation for a game like this, or like several Georgia has this year, is where it's at. Yes. And you get a chance to really get the players' attention, because that's what they come to Georgia for. That's what these recruits want to play. They want to be on the primetime game with all the eyes on there and just the intensity and fanfare. And so I think that Carson Beck, I feel very, very confident Carson Beck's going to have one of his best games. And yes. I don't even care if he throws an interception. That's fine.
Sling it.
Just think, and it's not just to turn it loose and throw the ball 40 times. That's never a recipe for success, really. It's to attack and have that mentality where you're not so risk averse. And I think a lot of times the coaching staff preaches that, and they had to with Stetson, because he was going to force some balls. And if you didn't really stay on top of him to be risk averse in terms of putting the ball at risk and letting the team, because those teams were just sensational. But I think this team needs Beck to take that leadership role on the field and to make some things happen. And whether it's picking the right play, you're not going to see anything held back this week from the coaching staff. Yeah. And I think a lot of that, Smooch, is because, well, you got the 12-team playoff now, so there's a little bit of margin for error. So you're not – and the Saban not being on the sideline, something too. I just expect Georgia to push the throttle all the way open, and to a little caution to the wind, not to play stupid by any means, but I do see the line of scrimmage cleaning some problems up. I'm sure they worked on it, and I think a lot of folks had come out and said it looked like more of a communication problem, other than the ability's there. So they could use that Kentucky game to clean some of those things up and work on them consistently.
It's almost as though as Kirby coached a game with the exact intent of knowing what they need to clean up and what they need to work on. That's
right.
Like I said,
that's why you play.
Yeah, that's why you play teams, and that's why you play them the way he played them. I'm not going to go as far as to say I love it. I love the result. It's a pain to watch, but hopefully we will be picking and reaping the fruit of that preparation Saturday when those boys take the field.
You're going to see some things in this game that you haven't seen yet, because that's just the way Georgia's going to play it. This is the first real SEC game that they had on their schedule. I mean, you can say what you want about Kentucky. Georgia didn't anticipate having to pull out all the stops against them, so they didn't.
Right.
But you will see Georgia open some things up and run some plays that they're had them in weight. I'm not saying they're trick plays. I think you only run trick plays when you are at a disadvantage on the field in terms of talent. Georgia won't have to do that. But I also, like I said, circle Carson Beck. You're going to see him play a spectacular game. He's going to make a name for himself. People are going to stop questioning him and calling him check down Carson. When he does check down, it's potentially the right play. You can, especially with Georgia's playmakers on the outside, get him the ball. I see a couple players, Smooch, that I think are going to have big games as wide receivers. And this guy hasn't done it yet, because you have to define yourself in these big games, or how you do that. Lawson Lucky. They haven't utilized the tight ends very much at all. This is a game where the tight ends can be a focal point, or more so lucky. I think Delp is kind of his identity has become more of a blocker.
He's in the box. He's a lot more in the box right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so watch Lawson Lucky have 3 or 4 big catches in moments where Georgia's got a third down and he kind of finds the spots that Brock Bowers used to find and make some big catches. And he's that kind of player. He just hasn't had the opportunity just yet. He plays a lot.
Yeah.
But the shine, yes.
Mine is Dylan Bell. And I'm going to tell you what
that was my second one.
Yep.
Call.
Look for at least 2, maybe 4 of those back shoulder fades that he catches better than anyone else in college football. And say he's the best receiver in college football. He's one of them. But that back shoulder throw down the sideline catch, if you want to look at the Florida State game, he made 2 of them. If you want to watch those catches, I expect to see at least 2 of those. Bell is the type of guy that is a team guy. He's happy just winning the game, but in games where he's needed, he tends to come up big. And remember last year, Troup Brinson, when we needed him, he stepped up big at running back. He just does whatever it takes to help his team win. This is the type of game where high character, high athlete guys like that really shine.
And I want to stress again, because a lot of folks who look at the offensive game planning, and especially yet from quarterback position, you don't want your quarterback throwing 40 passes, because that's a bad harbinger. You look at the statistics, it shows that when you have to throw 40, 45 passes, it's usually not in a winning effort, because you aren't balanced for one thing,
right.
And you're being forced to do that maybe because you're trailing and your running game's getting shut down. So don't expect Beck to have to throw the ball 40 times for you to feel satisfied. Doesn't work that way. 28 to 32 right in there, or even less, 25 to 35 right in there. That's the sweet spot, and you'll know you're pretty balanced, and Georgia's doing what they want to do and not what they're forced to do. I do feel like Georgia's approach, before I talk about the defense, I feel like Georgia's approaching this game, like Kirby has said, as a team who wants to attack, who wants to hunt, for lack of, he's used that word before too. If Georgia goes into this game feeling that way and imposing their will, it's gonna be a huge reality check to a coaching staff on the Alabama side, who I don't think has faced anything like this before, and I don't, and just what I've been hearing, they're much different. They coach a lot different, which is fine, than Saban does. And when you get hit in the mouth, you get punched in the mouth, and they will get punched in the mouth Saturday. Are they prepared to answer Georgia? Right. Georgia, a motivated team with a chip on their shoulder. I don't know if they are. And if Georgia gets up on you by a couple of touchdowns, the floodgates, just like it has happened with Alabama facing these under or challenged schools, floodgates going to open up because Georgia's got weapons all over the field.
100%. And the one thing, Troup, on this defense that I don't understand, I know it's been mentioned a couple of times, but why isn't it being discussed what an improvement this defense is over last year's Dawgs defense? The Dawgs still haven't given up a touchdown this year. The fact that they didn't light up the scoreboard against Kentucky does nothing to take away from that. As a matter of fact, that increases the value of this defense. Last year, listen to this, Troup. Georgia gave up 21 to UAB last year. They gave up 20 to Auburn. They gave up 22 to Vanderbilt. They gave up 20 to Florida and 23 to Georgia Tech last year. I don't see any of those happening to this team, to this defense. I think that if Georgia scores 28 points in this game, they win, period. I don't see them giving up a lot of points, and that's not being talked about anywhere. That's what I like it. And second of all, to piggyback on the very end thing you said about the different coaching focuses and philosophies, we just heard Kirby say he had to get his players to back it off a little bit because he didn't want them to get injured at practice. All right? You saw the injury report. There's nobody injured for Kalen DeBoer. Now, nobody injured? I'm not saying that an injury report of nobody injured. I mean, he had like 3 questionables or probables on there, whatever it was. Okay, I'm not saying that's necessarily an indicator that you don't practice hard, but what I'm saying is it's an indicator that you don't practice hard.
Yeah, maybe so.
Right, because, Georgia players always are covered in blood and bumps and bruises. What is Tuesday called, Troup?
Bloody Tuesday.
Bloody Tuesday. Every Dogs fan knows that. You think Kalen DeBoer has a Bloody Tuesday? I think if Georgia can just make it come down to toughness, and the way you do that is you contain Jalen Milroe. He's the X factor in the whole thing. But if it just comes down to toughness, I think your point's exactly right. These two different styles of coaching, they start punching each other in the mouth. I love Georgia's chances.
Well, Milroe is a quarterback, Smooch, who and their offense has been a offense who will body blow, then boom. Big haymaker or, a cross. That's the way they've operated. And it's been successful because it is successful against teams who aren't athletic enough or physical enough to withstand it. I don't think that's Georgia. Georgia last year didn't give up a whole lot to Alabama. And these linebackers are a year more experienced and better. And so Georgia has all the weapons and skill players on defense and speed. Oh, speed galore.
Yeah. The fastest defense they've ever had.
To give Alabama a lot of problems. So looking at defense, I will say I just think Georgia does need to attack. I think that's the word I keep using, attack. And the main reason is to make Jalen Milroe process quicker.
Yes.
He cannot sit back there and pick out his receivers because he can throw the deep ball with a lot of touch on it.
He throws that lollipop deep pass just beautifully.
And if you give him that much time, that's much more difficult for a DB to stay with the wide receiver on any level. That's not news. That's not news or not, that's not a novel idea. You got to get to the quarterback and pressure him and close that timing window where he has to do stuff quicker than he wants to do. You don't have some of these deeper routes to time to develop either. And Georgia tackles, and just the physicality and the tackling ability is going to pay dividends in a game like this where they are hyper focused on what their job is. So I'm excited about that. Another thing that is on my mind, and we're going to get Coach on here to help us out with this in just a second, is people say you got to, if you want to close that window, you got to go after him. You can't sit back and let him process. Give him 5 seconds to process. So what do you do, Smooch? Do you just unleash havoc and have all the rush or blitz him and rush him and have people coming up field and trying to get him? I think that's a thought. If you want to harass Milroe, chase him down, hit him over and over again, that sounds good to me too. But what I do worry about is when you do get upfield and you do have players on the edge kind of run past the quarterback sometimes, you create running lanes and you create, I feel like Georgia a lot of times in seasons past, they want to create a stalemate up front and have a wall and let the linebackers run unfettered, chasing down running backs and quarterbacks. But
what we saw, if you remember the end of the Ohio State game, what we saw is Georgia with their hair on fire rushing the quarterback and C.J. Stroud taking one of those running lanes and going for 25-yard clips. And that is the reason they were able to attempt that kick that they missed, is for that very reason. We were giving him running lanes. He was running right past. But what do you see? What do you see them doing? Which way do you think they'll go?
I don't know. I think they're going to try to be opportunistic, but there's a part of me who says, go get him. Just go, whatever you got to do. Get him off his comfort. Get him off platform. I don't care. Get him out. They say, I've heard people say, keep him in the pocket. I just don't trust that. If he's rolling out, Georgia's got enough speed that they'll make him pay if he tries to get around the edge or stretch the play. Yeah. I got confidence in him. But so I'm going to ask you, we wanted to ask Coach that if Georgia does send ungodly pressure, I feel like that's going to cost them in the running game, and they have to limit the running game. Will that cost them? Tell me I'm wrong, Coach. That's going to create too many running issues and too many running lanes. What does he say to that? Well,
it's funny. I spoke with Coach today on this very thing. Our Coach Hayes, our Dog Show correspondent, the other host of Dog Dispatch. Anyway, here's what he had to say.
What I'm showing here is a 4-man pressure, and this is something I think we can do against Alabama. If we can get 4-man pressure to the quarterback, we leave linebackers at the second level to help if we do flush Milroe. You can see here CJ Allen is just watching, waiting to see what we got on the crossers, but we're getting to the football with 4 guys. What I notice out of this situation too, if you roll it back, is that when we do blitz and we run these X stunts, look at how all the gaps are still taken care of. A and B gap are sound across the board, and you've got linebacker level still ready to help on the flush if actually Milroe is flush from the pocket, either right or left side. This is the reason why I think it's easy for us to have the ability to basically let everything play in front of us. And if he does have to run this and run the check down, then we've got the speed to pursue to those players. But because we don't have to bring necessarily a 6th man in the pressure, like a CJ Allen, like a Smile, like a Raylan Wilson, we can rush with 4, maybe even bring a 5th and still have linebacker depth that helps us maintain gap integrity. As you can see here, as Jalen crosses and McKell comes over the top, A and B gaps are still sound by every position here that you're looking at.
So he said I'm wrong, basically. He
said you're wrong. Yes.
He's telling me I'm wrong, that there's a way for Georgia to handle those gaps and still get pressure on Milroe. He expects him to do that. I mean, if it works, great. You know, I just know Georgia's going to have to. I feel like in the past against Alabama, Georgia has been a little more cautious. And again, risk averse. Again, I think that's a Kirby Smart thing. And I just wonder in a game like this where, you know, there's some margin for error here. They haven't lost a game yet. I feel like this might be our toughest game in the atmosphere in this time of the season. It might be. I feel a lot better about Texas, believe it or not, and I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so I feel like Kirby can kind of gear it down a little bit, and you know, in theory, it makes sense because they haven't been a team that can execute or haven't had to execute long drives, and if you make them do that and keep everything in front of you, that's one thing. I just think they got to go get him though, and.
I think you got to go get him because I think you win this game by letting your defensive guys run and not have to choose between 3 and 4 options in a decision tree. They need assignment football and they need to run with their hair on fire and go for it. That's how you win this game because our defense is faster than their offense. And so that's the way the game needs to go. Let your guys play. I remember 2021, the SEC title game compared to the national championship game. One game had defensive guys standing around thinking, analyzing, reading, and then the national title game had guys just running, playing, going to the football, and having fun doing it. Yeah. And that's what they need to have this Saturday.
It feels like a lot of it is just mindset.
Yeah.
And it is tough. It's a long season, and it's tough to have college athletes or any athletes really focused to the maximum for every game to get up for it and be mentally prepared and to prepare that week. You're just going to have some kind of ebb and flow. This is the game you shouldn't have that. It shouldn't. I mean, people talk about pressure. Georgia got pressure on. They got to do this. I'm like, I don't feel that. If Georgia has won 45, we go back. Okay, I'm sorry to say this, Alabama fans, but if we go back to 2021. I could go back to 2020 and increase these numbers for Georgia, but I think 2020 was kind of a bastardized season, and you know I don't even count
the COVID season and national championship. That doesn't even count.
2020, I don't even count that. So whatever Georgia did that season and whatever Alabama did that season, wash it.
I don't know what they do.
So since 2021, Georgia has won 45 out of 47 games.
Wow.
Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't the Dogs feel confident? Why shouldn't they know their best is always good enough? Because it has been. It has been. Yeah. That's why we say Georgia is the standard, folks.
Right.
Through national championships, 45 out of 47 wins since 2021. Nobody's doing it better than that. Nobody.
No. Think about this, Troup. In the last 3 years, Alabama has lost 3 times as many games as Georgia. 300%. They have lost 3 times as many games as Georgia in the last 3 seasons, and those were under Saban. Georgia has taken over. Now they've got to go get it done. The best team doesn't always win. I told a guy on Twitter today, Alabama had a huge edge over Michigan and went and laid an egg. They didn't beat Michigan. That's what Georgia can't do. They're the better team. They're significantly better, but they're going to play on the road, which evens things up a bit, but they're the better team. They have to go in there and use their competitive edge to win the game.
And they've been tested this year Georgia's already played some really good defenses. I will say that on defense, I think Georgia has to limit that running game, because if Alabama starts running effectively, they can run downhill on you.
Oh, yeah.
And Georgia can have some issues there in that defensive interior. You don't want to have to overcommit more people, because that's gonna open up that passing game. And then they kind of got you where they want you.
Yeah, if you leave that kid, that 17-year-old out there in single coverage, it could get ugly.
Yeah, so they got to slow the running game and not give up big chunk plays running. And Georgia's historically been able to do that, but if things are going to go bad, that's how it's going to happen. And they're saying that we've seen that Milroe is running a lot more this year. Quarterback designed runs, just turning pretty much into a tailback in the backfield and following a blocker. Georgia can handle that. I'll worry more about those two big running backs, Justice Haynes and Jam Miller.
Yes,
getting some momentum, and they can hurt you. And so if Georgia stops that up, when I see it, and sometimes the first quarter is different than the rest of the game. But if Georgia can get a handle on that, I feel very good defensively that they're going to tackle and punish like nobody Alabama's played this year. I'm 100% sure of that.
Right.
And so Alabama will get punched in the mouth by Georgia's defense Saturday. And they haven't had to answer that question yet this year. Even South Florida, that's who they struggle with, South Florida.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a Kentucky game. That really wasn't getting punched in the mouth. That was them looking past a team that they shouldn't have. But
right.
Saturday night's going to be a whole different story. And I'm looking at my notes here, Smooch. One reason I'm confident is because of that Kentucky game. For the same reason I was worried is the same reason I'm confident.
I'm right there with you. I'm the exact same sentiment.
I was more worried right after the Kentucky game. I said, our offense, come on now. Is this what our offense is going to be? And I'm like, then I remember what historically has happened under Kirby Smart. And I'm like, okay, this is played out before. Georgia get Georgia's attention, and they're going to play their A game against a really good opponent. They just do it consistently. That's why Georgia's 45-2 over the past 47 games. That's why they have 2 national championships. Now, Alabama, and I say this over and over because we get told about Alabama's trophy case and what Saban's record was against Coach Smart, especially in the past few years. And I'm like, Alabama's good enough to put together their best game and beat you. But over the past 3 or 4 years, they haven't consistently been able to do that. That's why we've had questions about them and the product they're putting on the field. Where they say, well, they beat Georgia. I just said that they have enough talent to put their best game on the field and win a close game to beat you. And they've been able to do that. If Saban's the GOAT, if he's the GOAT, he's the GOAT. And the GOAT should find a way to win some of these close games, and they have. But Georgia is going to be able to use that Kentucky game to their benefit. Right. And that's what gives me a lot of confidence that you won't see, because that game wasn't a issue with talent or with, Georgia has elite talent all over the field. Right. It was a mindset problem, if you ask me, and a coach's mindset as well, because the coaches were prepared to put a very limited game plan out there and to work on certain things. They're prepared for that, a close game.
Right, and you have to also factor in that Kirby has immense respect for Saban, which I think harmed the SEC title game approach last year. He does not have immense admiration and respect for Kalen DeBoer or Kevin Womack. That doesn't exist. Those are all going to play into the Dogs' favor.
You just did a Ron Swanson right there. Just called the man, just changed his name around, Kane Womack. But
what I said?
Kevin, we'll call him Kevin from here on out.
Kevin Womack. Kevin, his name's Kevin.
And Nick Sheridan is their offensive coordinator, which I don't know how much he's calling the plays or DeBoer. I don't know. But Nick Sheridan, let's tell you where he came from. He was a graduate assistant when Kirby was hired to be the Georgia Bulldogs head coach. So, Sheridan, Womack, and DeBoer.
Yeah.
It makes you, if it makes you happy and they put together some evidence that they're that type of coaching staff, then we'll reassess that. But it ain't happened yet.
There's no proof.
Wisconsin,
right. There's no proof of concept. Yeah.
It hasn't yet. And we've said this, whatever happens, they're not going to be better than Saban. So,
exactly.
We're okay. We're okay with whatever happens. That was one of the things on Twitter that upset a lot of folks, Alabama fans, that they were hurling everything they could at us, Smooch, was that I'm going to take Kirby Smart over Kalen DeBoer every day of the week.
Who
And
wouldn't?
why
So would
wouldn't-
Alabama. So would Alabama. They would take Kirby Smart over Kalen DeVore.
And so with the two teams who are pretty, I mean, the statistics, the blue chip ratio, whatever you want to call it, Georgia's right there. Alabama are the two teams far ahead of everybody else. So it's going to come down to the game plan, the preparation, because once this game starts Saturday, I mean, the work is done. You just got to execute at that point.
Yeah, and let's not forget they talk about that Kalen DeBoer took this ragtag team to the playoff last year, and that proves that he's a great coach. Kalen DeBoer used very well lack of competition that he faced all year, and a good quarterback, Atlanta Falcons, but a good quarterback to advance. And you can't take that away from him. But that's not what coaching in college football is. It's building a team. It's keeping a team together. It's leading a team. And so the idea that he somehow made this team so much better than they were, that's more like saying he's an offensive coordinator. It's the same thing Tennessee people say about Heupel. But the concept hasn't been proven. You have to prove it on the field. Kirby is proven on the field, and Kalen DeBoer has never been in an SEC dogfight, and he's going to be in one Saturday, and I don't see him coming out of it with a win. I just don't.
I mean, we'd be ridiculous not to be skeptical until they provide proof and to have more confidence in what Kirby Smart and his staff have been able to do and how the history has shown how they handle these top games. So I'm excited about it. And what do you do? This is not going to sound right for Alabama fans, but what do you do Saturday night when you find out your team is untested and soft? You don't feel that way right now. You might, after Saturday night, feel that your team is soft and unprepared and untested. Kirby Smart can do that to you. Dogs can do it to you. What happens when you get punched in the mouth and find out that Georgia is the bully and they just came to your stadium and took everything that you thought was, made you special away. And now you're questioning where you are. And we're Dog fans, but as I tried to sift through what I know and what I've seen this year and the past years, that's really the way I feel. Georgia is going to approach this game like they're the bully. It's tough going into Tuscaloosa. That's going to be something to get past and to deal with the sound and the noise and all that.
And the officiating. Yeah, let's be clear, Georgia fans.
Be.
You're going to get horrible officiating. We've got to rise above it.
Yeah, there's going to be some third downs, or Georgia's got them third down and 12, and they're going to throw it up, and they're going to call pass interference on some hand fighting. We know, and we're going to get past that and overcome that. That's what champions do. And this is why you come to Georgia, to be tested in practice, to be tested in games like this. And as a fan, this is what we want. I don't want to say every week. We're gonna have to have a break every once in a while. But Georgia's got more games like this than any time in my memory. It's probably not even a question.
Well, the thing is even though the talent level and the importance of the game is the same, there's something different about Alabama. So we could not handle the anxiety level of the Alabama game every week. But Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Let's do it. Let's have some fun. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's where that wasn't a breakdown in terms of let's look at this player and let's look at this player and how they match up together. And this guy does well in this scheme. We don't have to do that. When we want to do that, we have a coach on for 30 minutes and he does a great job. We'll let him break down maybe what happens later. But in terms of a fan like me and Smooch are, and we're Georgia fans, so don't expect anything different. Sure. I feel like you're – see Georgia's best, and I've got a reason to believe that. Are we ready for our predictions yet? Yeah, what you thinking? Or you want to talk? You want me to go?
Yeah, I'll go. So I predict that Georgia's defense wins the day. That's my prediction. I've been wrong before. I was wrong about the SEC title game. Still don't know how that happened, but I was right about a lot. I predicted a Georgia 50 points against Kentucky and Ole Miss last year, got both of those, and that was when Kentucky was undefeated and Ole Miss was picked by many to beat Georgia, come in and get the upset. All right, so I'm going to say this. The defense wins the day. The defense frustrates Bama. Exactly what you said. Bama gets frustrated because they realize they're softer than Georgia, and Georgia starts to pull away even by halftime. And though the game doesn't become absolutely embarrassing, if everything goes according to plan, I see the Dogs as a comfortable win. You want a score prediction? Is that what we're doing here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Score prediction, I'm going to say 31-9.
Wow, that is an incredible score. That's what I predicted against who was that? Who did I predict? That was
I think you predicted against
Clemson?
Kentucky. Was it Clemson?
No, I think it's Clemson. I had something like 31-9 or 31-13. Maybe that's what I had.
I'm not going to lead. I could make it 31-10 and give Alabama a touchdown, but I really think the defense is going to take its place in the pantheon of Georgia defenses.
Oh, that is quite the prediction. As a hot take, I love it. 31-9. Georgia does not give up a touchdown again.
Right.
And Georgia defense has opportunity to prove a lot in this game. And,
now, I could be proven wrong in the first 8 seconds, but I'm just saying.
I feel that I feel the defense is going to – I feel like Beck's going to have a good game. I feel like the offense is going to be fine. I think the defense is going to make a huge difference. I think they're being undersold. I've heard people say, well, Georgia's not as good as this year as they were last year, and Alabama beat them. I was like, you really don't see that this team
insane.
Is because of the Kentucky game? Is that what you're saying? Are you that shallow of a football fan that you can't put down the pom-poms to see that this Georgia team is loaded defensively?
Yeah.
Now, anything can happen as far as injuries, and
sure.
Georgia's going to plug somebody else in there and keep going, whether Michael plays 5 snaps or 35 snaps. I don't, it'll come somewhere in between then if he plays. But I feel the defense is going to play well. I don't feel quite as confident. I think that Bama's going to find the end zone a little bit more. I don't want to precisely have a feel for the ebb and flow of this game. I do predict Georgia wins 34-27.
I like that.
But I do think that Alabama scores to make it that close in the last 5 minutes, so that maybe tries an onside kick or something. I don't know.
So you got like up 14 going into the fourth quarter.
Something like that.
And
yeah,
30 scraps another touchdown.
34-27. So I think our linebackers, these linebackers that are starting to make a name for themselves are going to absolutely shine. And they're going to be the players that they talk about for the next game. Oh, you got to see – this is a must-see player. He's a player who's moving into the possible first-round top player. I think inside, outside linebackers, and which I laugh when I see when they comparing the fans mostly are comparing the position groups, and they don't give Georgia linebackers any credit. I'm like, you have no idea. These are all these guys are 5-star, and it's not just 5-star because of what they did in high school. They have come to college and proven that those –
and litting it up, yeah.
They have proven that they were right. These are those type dudes. And so you're going to see that transpire. And that's what you have to have against a team like Alabama with Jalen Miller. You got to have linebackers that shine, that make tackles. And you got to have those defensive backs come up like Georgia has. They come up and can tackle, and they're going to hit you, and you're going down right there. You're not getting 5, 6, 7 extra yards. And so tackling Georgia is a team like nobody else who can do those things. And so that's where I fall, 34-27. And it's going to be one of those games that we just talk about and enjoy. And then we're going to move on and get ready for Auburn and Mississippi State and Texas. But
yeah, whatever the motivation was of the Kentucky game has been building to this moment. They've got to go out there and they've got to get it done. I think this. I think either Georgia wins by more than one score or they don't win. You know what I mean? It's almost like if they go out and they do, if everything happens as this plan has been, that you unleash this game plan, Carson steps up, these players do what they're supposed to do, they use that Kentucky game for motivation, I don't feel like Bama can keep the game all that close. But there's the other side of it. It might not happen. Like I said, we've been wrong before. I did call the exact score of the Tennessee game last year, though, at 38-10. I'd just like to point that out right now.
And it's not like fans. It's not like Georgia hasn't played good defense. Alabama's not coming in here as some kind of juggernaut defense that's scaring Georgia's offense. I mean, they're got something to contend with. They're a good defense.
They've got good athletes in the defense.
Yes, and so they're not somebody that we're any more worried about than we were against Clemson. Mm-hmm. And once Georgia found their rhythm against Clemson, it was lights out. And Georgia embarrassed them. So that's a potential. And in a game like this, maybe even more potential because Alabama, again, is untested. So that's where we are. And we have been having a good time on Twitter for the most part. Smooch has had a busy week, so he's just now able to kind of detach and really get in. This podcast right now, the Countdown to Kickoff, marks the beginning of Smooch's focus on football this week, right?
Oh my gosh, it has. I have been stretched so thin this week. And I told Troup, it feels like I've been gone for a year. It was really like 4 days, but it feels like I've been out of the loop for a year. And so, yeah, I have just immersed myself in all things Georgia. I've gone and listened to our friends. I've checked out Bulldog Report online. I've listened to Dog Dispatch that I missed.
And Coach Hayes has been putting some good stuff out there.
Hayes is putting great stuff out right now, and I've just been immersing myself in all that. I really like we listen to Brandon Adams, Dog Nation Daily, and a couple other. I can't remember off the top of my head. They all have a dog in their name, but yeah.
That's right. So we locked in, and we'll say again, thank you for Coach Hayes for providing that, and tell me that I was wrong. I wanted to be wrong, that Georgia could get after the quarterback and not put themselves at too much risk. And he says, yeah, we have the athletes and the coaching staff to prepare a plan where Georgia.
He has schemed it up. Whether or not they listen to him is their fault. Yeah, their problem.
You can find Coach Hayes, of course, on Coach Hayes Huddle. Yeah. And on YouTube, especially his biggest platform, and Dog Dispatch, wherever. And also do that for us too. Our YouTube page is killing it right now. We've had a great couple months on there, and so jump on there and check us out, get in the comments, follow us on Twitter, and that's everywhere at the Dog Show Pod, right, Smooch?
At the Dog Show Pod, guys. Next milestone for us we're looking at is 1,000 followers on YouTube. That's what we're after, 1,000 subscribers. Keep listening, keep commenting. And like I said, I think we've held true to our word that we respond to every comment. I think we have. If we haven't, let us know. We'll make sure to do it. But it's been great. The discussion's been great. Met some great Bama fans on YouTube. Met some really bad Bama fans on Twitter.
So get on Twitter and give us some support, because I felt like I was holding it down all by myself the last couple of days.
You were, man.
And that's fine. And but get on there. Don't be afraid. Their fans are not scary. They're not even that bright.
I think Alabama
so you won't have a hard time arguing from a position of strength, which is what Georgia always has. Georgia back-to-back national champions and running college football 45 out of the last 47 games in the past 3+ years now.
Yeah.
Doing it like nobody else. We'll be back Saturday after the game, I suspect, for a rapid reaction to celebrate a Dawgs victory. Thank you so much for tuning in to our countdown to kickoff. We'll talk to you soon. For Smooch Moncrief, this is Troup Brinson saying so long. See you soon.
To the right. Snap to Young. Drops back. Pressure from the edges. He throws near sideline. And it's intercepted. Intercepted. Keely Ringo at the 21. Off he goes. 40, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30 near sideline. Breaks the tackle. 20, 15, 10, 5.
Countdown to kickoff, baby.
Touchdown, Georgia.
This is the Dog Show with Troup and Smooch.
I nailed that. That was good.
It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show.